Okay, thank you.
Our speaker tonight.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Joe Elkins over here. Joe, hold your hands up. He lives in Templeton. Maybe many of you know him. He is the architect that we hired, I guess, in 1991. We actually built here in 1994. So the design of what you'll see of the sanctuary and the two-story Christian education was his design after he had seen what our needs were. Ironically, a year ago or so, well, let me back up. At that time period when I started my committee in 1991, and we had, at that time period, this church had maybe 80, 85 members. Opened it to anybody that wanted to be on the committee, and we had 15 people. So it was a lot of people that signed up for being on the committee. We were the recipient of the Lucille Butler estate. Did anybody here know Lucille? Okay, back there, one. Well, tell us then what you know about Lucille, if you don't mind.
Well, she had her dad was on Moss Lane.
Right.
And she and her husband Jim lived there, and they had a cabin. And there was wonderful people that had come from Close maybe, and had sold their land out there for a subdivision. They moved up here, they had no children. And I talked to Lucille one time and I asked her if she'd ever been to this church or to the women's club, and she said never. But she had observed the town, and she said these are the two needs. Make this church bigger and build a community center. She's a really good person.
So she must have died around 1991, something like that.
I don't remember exactly.
About that time, and you're correct, she had no children, so she gifted in her estate, 2/3 of the net estate went to the Presbyterian Church, and 1/3 went to the Women's Civic Club. They had a house right across the street here on Main Street. And so they also built, about 6 months behind us. Joe, you were the architect on that, as I recall, also, correct? So I formed my committee in 1991. I had, I guess, to back up a little bit, I had no construction background at all. I was a pilot, retired pilot from Los Angeles that moved up here in 1989. Been a Presbyterian all my life, so I joined this church at the time. And you'll see in the slides that I'm going to show you. We'll put this together kind of as a two-section. We can talk a little bit here now, and then we'll go into the sanctuary. And I have about 12, 15 slides that have to do with the house that we donated to the Historical Society. So once they stop singing, we'll move in there. So at any rate, I had no background experience at all, but I was a member of what we called the long range planning group. There was like 4 of us, and we had this that you see right here. We had our regular services, Sunday services in here. The men of the church had added on a section over here that had a small kitchen, one little bathroom, and kind of the pastor's office. And we had 3 trailers right over here that they'd picked up and hooked together. Each one was 10 by 50 feet, so that was 1,500 square feet. And then we owned the house that was on Main Street and the vacant lot. So we had 4 lots, of which 3 were used. So what happened was that the business manager for Lucille Butler contacted Steve Knowles. Anybody remember Steve Knowles? He was our minister from about around 11 years, and he left in 95. So maybe from 84 to 95, something like that. Business manager contacted Steve and said that we were in the estate and to expect to get some amount out of it, but it was essentially locked up with some over 200 acres of land that they thought would sell pretty slow. So they didn't know when it would sell or when we would get any money or really how much it would be, possibly 250,000, which was a lot for this little church with the small membership that we had. We were still kind of a mission church at that time period. So we didn't have much in the way of resources. You're through? Shall we move over? Would end up it turned out to be more. So the land, as I remember, sold fairly quickly. We started my committee in the fall of 1991, and I think by 92 or 93, it had sold. Also, she had some stock in a water company down in Los Angeles, and they did some kind of reverse condemnation, and so it was sold, and we got $50,000-$60,000 out of that. Anyhow, long story short, we ended up probably getting the better part of $500,000, 500,000. Go ahead.
I tell you, her ranch was where Cheesebro's pumpkin farm is now.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. Let's see, I guess, should I say anything more about this? This is an airborne shot that I took myself. I owned a World War II airplane that I still own and took a number of shots from the air. And I might also add then, Steve Knowles stayed around until about 1995, and then he moved to a church up in Washington State. We had an interim pastor for about 22 months, and then Charlie Little came in about 1998. And we were pretty much through at the time that Charlie came in. And it wasn't until, I guess, 2019, we were coming up on the 25th anniversary of the first church service. We had our first service in here in Christmas Eve of 1994. And so we were coming up on the 25th anniversary. And so he asked me if I would write a book about building a church. So I had already written 4 books about my aviation career, combat in Vietnam, being a test pilot out at Edwards and a test pilot for Hughes Aircraft Company down in Los Angeles. And so I did write a book. We self-published it. The church, I think, bought 200 copies. I bought 200 copies. I've got a couple of copies here that I can give away if you're interested. And so it's easy reading. You can read it in probably about an hour, or as I say, one sitting. If you're constipated, it's only one sitting, and you can read the whole book. Sorry?
We have it in the museum for sale.
Oh, you do? Good. Anyhow, I guess, Lynn, let's go to the next shot. Can you move it forward, Neil?
I got it.
Okay, there we go. Okay, at the time, it was the Learning Tree Co-op Preschool, meaning that it was the women that had their children in the school that they conducted it. And they met, I guess, I'm not sure how long they met, but had been in operation. But in '94, when we decided to build, they were still in operation at that time period. So that's a side look. Next slide. Okay, that's from the front. Notice the white picket fence that was facing Main Street. And you can see part of the bell tower from the chapel sits right over here. Again, this is before we had started construction. Next slide. Okay, so we've now had just barely started construction, so we're moving a little bit of land. This is as we viewed the house from the church property. That is Steve Knowles. Notice the fireplace here. There's quite a story about the fireplace. This fencing went all the way around, keep the children in. There was also a cellar that was about the quarter the size of the house. And I suppose it was made back when people did canning, or maybe it was a storm cellar, although we don't have hurricanes or anything like that, but that's all I can think of. There was nothing stored down there, but there was stairs that went down. The house sat where the design for the parking lot was, so we needed to get rid of it before we could finish the project. We had 2 building permits, one for the sanctuary and one for the 2-story Christian education building. So that's what it looked like from our side. It seemed like the water well was someplace maybe right around here. So we had to decide what to do with the house. There was somebody that was interested in, I forget who it was, but he was thinking of moving the house out of town, someplace I think over around Creston, and having a boys' camp or something like that. That turned out that nothing went there. Steve Knowles himself was interested in the house, but you had to have a lot to move it to, and he didn't have that, and it turns out he never was able to follow through on that. So it was interesting. I checked with the fire department because they do use properties to train for burning. And so I talked with them, but they don't burn it down one time. They use it several times over a period of months. And so that didn't look very good. The other thing was just to have a bulldozer come in and tear it down, kind of like what we ended up seeing here a couple weeks ago with the Templeton grain. It turns out that the dump fees are really, really huge, unless, in talking with them, they said if the men of the church wanted to take the building apart, in other words, put all the glass here, all the plumbing here, the roof material here, the wood there, then it's cheaper to take it to the dump. But there was no way I thought the men of the church could ever end up taking a house apart without somebody getting hurt. So that's when sometime, I guess maybe the middle of 1994, we heard the Historical Society was interested in the house. And so we were all for it. I think Jerry Abramson, does that name ring a bell? I think she was the president at the time. And I had talked with her. She had gotten a quote to move the house, something like $4,000 to do that. And then, Joe, you can help me out with this. We had a meeting of some kind, and I think it was you and I were there along with the house movers. And I think that's the first time they realized that it had a fireplace in it, and they couldn't move it with the fireplace. So, and it was going to be something like another $4,000 if they had to take that out. And that's where Joe, come on up here, Joe, and help me with this part of the story. He said in the meeting, he said, George and I can take that chimney down in just a couple of hours. So tell me what we did.
Well, it's a good thing you were a jet pilot, and I don't have good sense.
Okay.
We looked at the chimney and we looked at the guy's estimate to take that chimney and fireplace out of that house, and it was astonishing. So we looked at it, and I was looking at the Women's Club project across the street, and the bricks in those old fireplaces were soft, and they were put together with mortar that was just about to fall apart by itself anyway. And we looked at it and said, well, I think we can do that.
What's this we? That's what he said. I never taken a chimney apart.
My wife volunteered to be our safety patrol.
That's right.
Keep somebody from. So I crawled up and got in the top of that chimney, and George got in the bottom, the opening of the fireplace, and my wife got out on the lawn there, and I just started dismantling it and shoving it down that roof.
Right.
And then we thought, well, what about this big pile of bricks we're going to have down there? And we thought, well, we can haul them away or something. And we talked about it, and I told him, based on what I've seen around this town and other projects where some used brick show up somewhere, we probably didn't have to worry about used brick going away. And sure enough,
they disappeared overnight.
Took most of them, I think, but there wasn't a brick left the next day. They were gone.
Yeah, there's a planter just across the street over here that has some of the bricks. So
Pharmacy.
So we started with both of us on the roof, and he would tap one, and I would throw it down the side. Eventually, he got to the roof level of the roof. So then he got up in the attic and would knock a brick off, hand it to me, and I threw it down. Eventually, as he got lower, I went down with a shovel, and he would just drop the brick down the chimney, and I shoveled it out the window. And Linda was there. All three of us ended up look like chimney sweeps by the time we finished that off.
I'm sure I looked like a scarecrow. I was covered with brick dust and black soot,
And it was gone.
but we survived.
We survived.
Saved.
Some amount of money for you. You still owe us something, right? We ought to send him a bill. How about the next slide here?
That's still, you have that little fireplace at the museum, is that the remnants of it that are in there?
The fireplace was a brick. It could be.
Yeah, it's still a brick hearth, and it's obviously not connected in.
It's a brick hearth. Or it
You'll
could
have to
very
look
well
at
be.
it next time you do.
A lot of them were broken too, so they're, I don't know how you use this. So now we had started construction. So again, here is the house, and the parking lot was going to be the two lots that were right there. You can see we've demoed part of the building that was put in by the men of the church in the 1950s. I might add that this is an elevated building. The new one was a slab building, so we had a different height there. But we were able to use the foundation of that, which turns out to be the back half of this present church right now that you're sitting in. So you can see we got started. There's the outline of where the trailers were. They're gone. We sold them to a startup church in, I believe it was in Atascadero, for $500. So that was a great day when they came out and pulled those apart, put new tires on it, and down Crocker it went. I was mighty happy to see that gone. Next one. So now we've started construction again. You can see the bell tower. The Christian Education Building was about a month in front of the sanctuary. I think the Christian Education Building was supposed to be finished by the end of November. Our sanctuary was supposed to be done by December 31st of 1994. So they were about a month off, but they worked on them at the same time. But you can tell this is obviously ahead. Next one. This is the glue lamb beam that if you look right behind you, you can see it there. Originally, it was supposed to just have drywall on it, but when we looked at the wood, we said, wow, that really looks nice. It's kind of, everybody likes the wood texture, and we were trying to kind of match the Templeton look. So our light fixtures are kind of rustic looking. They look kind of like spurs. We didn't have the wood floor. We had tile at that time period. But that's the glue lamb beam as we got it. Next one. There the siding's up. We had 6 stained glass windows on each side. That's the door right here. That's the emergency door. But 6 stained glass windows on each side. Next slide. Still more, and our plan was to put stained glass windows on the side. The 3 peaks kind of were seen in the glass that you can see part of it from the chapel. There's 3 peaks there, so we kind of used that theme over here. So that's why we have the 3 right here. It's interesting also, the church sometime long before I became a member had purchased this cross, or had a local fellow design it, and he got started on it, and then I guess halted because he was supposed to carve some doves that were going to be attached to it, and didn't like the doves that he had made, and so he just stopped. Time went on. Now we had a building project, and one of our members said that he wouldn't mind taking a look at what he had already accomplished. So he had already finished the cross, just as you see it, but hadn't put any doves on it. And so we said, well, we might find a place for the cross, ask him what he wants for, what he's, to finish up the project. And he said $300. So we said, fine, go ahead and let's pay $300. And so it was Dale Sandifer. So he's long since passed, but his son is still around. He said that cross, I think, was in their living room for over a year. It just sat there. Then, so the stained glass windows here was designed without the cross, but then we thought, well, maybe we can put it up there. And as you can see, it really, it works quite well. It just fits in there quite well. So it's not often when you design two things that they would fit. I guess the other thing about the cross that's interesting, long after we had finished this project, this was just suspended on the two sides here. So other than that, it was free. And I had a dream one night that we had an earthquake and shook, and the bottom of the cross went through the stained glass window. So I called Joe Elkins and said, well, what can we do? And he said, go down to Hewitt Hardware. I think you may even sold it to me. Two metal flanges and a pipe in between. Screw it in, put the pipe in, and that'll keep it from rocking. That's what I did. So for a couple bucks, we solved that problem. No earthquakes, doesn't go through that. Next slide. So there we're moving down this oak tree. We tried to save it, but eventually it died. It didn't get the water that it probably needed. Although I think before we started construction, we had to take out 2 oak trees, and so the county made us put in 4 oak trees for every one that we took out. So we ended up putting in 8. We have 4 here. Put in the live oaks. Took them a long time to get started, but then they grew, and now you look at them and they're all have made it all look very, very, very healthy. Next slide. Okay, you can see we're still moving along. We got this is a false bell tower. That's a real bell tower. There is a bell there. We ring it at 10 o'clock every Sunday morning. That's right at the start of service. There is no bell tower here. That's just a false one. Next slide. There you see what it looks like from the outside. Next slide. We're just about through with that. We'll get to the house. I think we'll get to the house. Next one.
Want the next slide?
Yes, sure.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, there it is. Building given to the museum. It says October 17th. I'm not sure exactly when it moved, but it was sometime in the fall. It was interesting. Jerry had obviously a lot of trouble going through the politics and red tape that it takes to move a structure, and I had to get rid of it. And so initially I was calling her about every week, and then I was calling her every other day, and then maybe every day. And she got a little tired of me calling, so I put Joe in the action. Since he was a member of the museum, I said, why don't you go over there and help her out a little bit? This is a difficult thing to do for a layman, to figure out all that it takes to get something moved. So he helped her get the permits. Next one. And you can see our buildings back there. Okay, so now it's okay, go ahead one. There we go. So you can see it's already been lifted up here. And you can see what our church looks here. The structure is up, but the siding is not up. And Mary James was a member of our church and kind of a Templeton historian. So she, I guess, gave the Daily Press, must be the Paso Robles paper. I live in Atascadero, so I'm not familiar. Anyhow, she told them about the Horseman's house. Albert and Rose were married and lived in there for a number of years. So next slide. This is one that I really like. I was here when it was moved, and I got to thinking, if they have a problem getting it moved, I got a problem. I got a bigger problem. So I thought to myself, if that house gets out on the middle of Main Street, you own it, Templeton. I'm going to drive my car in on the sidewalk, park it, lock it there, because it's not coming back. That's a one-way trip. Actually, I don't have it here, but I guess I gave a presentation to the Historical Society I gave them the keys. And I have a sign there that says, no deposit, no return. And older people remember soda used to be in no deposit, no return bottles. So I had that sign that said, it is yours once it gets to the middle of the street. Anyhow, it moved down to 6th Street, moved up 6th Street, moved down Crocker. And one of my museum that was on my committee, Marlise Gould, I don't know if any of you know her. She still lives in Paso Robles. KSBY was out there, and Marlise and I were standing there watching this house go down the street. And they happened to pan by the two of us, and I was chewing gum. And I was chewing it about as fast as you could do. So I was still nervous on that house going down the street. But down it went. Next slide. So that's how we looked when we kind of finished up before any of the trees went in. The siding is all up. We did finish. We were, I think, about a week late on the fellowship hall, the Christian Education Building, but we did have Christmas Eve services in here in 1994, which was interesting because it wasn't due to be finished until the end, like I said, the end of the year, essentially New Year's. And Steve Knowles came up to me and he said, what are the chances of having Christmas Eve services in here? And at the time period, we didn't have power on this building. So he said, we got to get power, got to get the light fixtures in, got to put tile on the floor, got to put carpet in, got to put all of the pews in. We had none of the stained glass windows, and they're all on the inside. Kathy Ducey did those for us. Some of you may have known her, and she could only do like 2 per month. So it was months and months and months before we had all the stained glass windows. But sure enough, we used Templeton flooring right over here, and they put the tile that was black square tile, but it was only about 40 degrees, no heat, no power in here, so it wasn't adhering very well. The corners were up, so and there wasn't enough sandbags to fill up all the floor, so they recommended that just the people of the church come out and walk on it. So that's what we did. We got a group of people singing Christmas carols and just walked around and walked around and walked around, finally went down. Sure enough, everything came together. Even it was interesting on the light fixtures because we did a lot of measurement as to its height so that it wouldn't obstruct and be just right. And so we had exactly the number of inches it was supposed to be. And it came in just like that, very short, but we didn't have time to get new chains. So we put it right at the end, and that's where it's been since then. So, but we did have Christmas Eve services, which is really neat. Next slide. Oh, and I might add, so I finished up in December of 1994. So we had 2 building permits. One was for this building. This had been complete. We had unlimited use. On the Christian Education Building, we only had enough money to build the first floor. We had the roof and the windows on the second floor, but we had nothing internal. So we had to continue with an open building permit, which meant we had to do something every 6 months, have an inspector come out and sign it off, or the permit went away. So we continued to work on that for another several years. Guess who was our elder in charge of building ground right after I finished? Carl Coiner. And he had a tough job because anything that was kind of left over with squeaky doors and light switches and all that, Carl was out here with his work kit and away he worked. So this is kind of now more of a present day. It's still fairly old, but you can see the parking lot, the house is gone. In 2005, we bought this house with the interest that someday we could expand and that would give us more property. We were always interested in the Lively house. Steve and Lila have both passed away, but their daughter has moved in there, so that property won't be available to us for at least some time. But that's kind of how, it's more of how we look at this time. Next slide. That's kind of how you look right now with your big milk bottle out in front. The house looks good. You've taken care of it. I've been in it myself. It's really nice to see it. Next slide. There's your wall of honor. And I bought a tile, one of the large tiles for Carl Coiner. Next slide. Carl passed away in December of last year. I got the tile for him, I think, in early part of 2024, and got one of the large ones. And I'll read to you in a minute what is on there, because he wasn't in good health, and I wanted to make sure that he had a chance to see that. So I brought it over to him, and Liz used my camera to take a photograph of the two of us. Next slide. So Carl W. Coiner, he was a junior. Interesting, his father was actually a pilot in World War I. And he had a bunch of items. He was an only child. Carl was an only child. And so he had his dad's helmet, leather helmet from World War I, showed photos of him flying different airplanes. It was interesting because he got over to France, I think, and checked in the day the war was over. So he never flew any combat, but he said the way it worked was that the first over was the first back. So he was one of the last over there and one of the last to come back. So Carl was a junior. I think he was on your first museum board. He was a engineer, a civil service engineer out at China Lake for a number of years, retired and moved over here. How many people knew Carl? Probably, yeah, quite a few people. So I called him a rocket scientist. He and a couple other guys bought a Cessna 182, so he was a pilot for a number of years. As I said, he was an elder in the Templeton Presbyterian Church, strong Christian, and an excellent father, Liz tells me. So I owe a lot to Carl. He, I think, ended up being involved with the foundation and the plumbing and the electrical and everything once the house got over there. Some of you may know more about that than I do. I was busy trying to finish this up. It wasn't until 1998 that we finished the second floor and had total use of that. So that's kind of a short story of the house and the church. What questions do you have? If I can't answer them, Joe can. He can answer them all.
I'd say that Carl Coiner was a very busy man working to wrap this job up, and he was also running the job.
Working down there. He sure was. He was a good guy. There's no question about it. He was really top notch. Go ahead.
So there's this program. I'm Carl's son-in-law.
Right. This is Jeff, his son-in-law. Go ahead. Come on up.
His remains into space. So we decided to do that, Liz and I, his daughter. And so we have part of his remains that's going to go up in space. And we're still waiting for the date that he'll be sent.
That he'll be
We were
launched.
really excited. We used to always joke about Carl being the, rocket scientist of the family. And it was all fun. And he was just such a smart, endearing man who, in all the years that I've known him, and Liz and I have been married 40 years.
Right.
I've never seen Liz's temper. I've never seen him have a harsh word to anybody or anything like that. So yeah, he was a very good man, and and I miss him.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Got to be some other questions here. Somebody come up with a stumper for Joe. Ask a real tough question.
I have a question. Now that we're here, and what is your next steps? What are your next plans for this church? Are you going to do some more expansion?
Yeah, funny you should ask. Joe, come on up here. We're getting into your area. Charlie Little retired in 2021, and Roger Patton from Tennessee came. Roger is, I think, 49 years old, more of a contemporary minister than traditional. And so I guess the other thing I should add is Pete Perino. I don't know anybody know Pete Perino. He was part of my committee, 15-member committee, 31 years ago when we built. And before he passed away in 2015, in $100,000 increments, he donated $500,000 to our church to be used for either remodeling, buying more property, or something along that line. And so that money was put in some kind of a balanced mutual fund. Is over $1 million now. And so we were kind of saving it to potentially buy the Lively property if it became available. But when the daughter moved in after Leela passed away, we realized that it would be some period of time, and we'd already set on the money for a long time. So we said, what we can do here. And the first thing that Roger wanted is more space for a sanctuary. And other members of my committee felt that the chapel was never not being used well enough. And so we even looked at moving it down to the corner of 6th and Main Street here. And I had a house mover come out from Fresno, I believe it was, and said he could move it, which surprised us. Something that was built in 1887, you could actually move it, and wasn't that expensive either. It wasn't $4,000, but it was doable. And so we thought of doing that, but then we didn't know what it would be doing down there. So we thought of some way of using it. So 30 years later, we rehired Joe to come back. You were 50 then, now you're 80. When we built here, I was 59, now I'm 89. So they're sending us both back into duty. This is our last project, maybe our last swan song. I don't think we can do the next model. So tell them what we're going to do. You notice the window's gone. That gives you a hint.
Well,
What are we going to do?
we haven't finished up, so we can leave, George.
I know we can always get out of town.
God's got a plan for you. God's got a plan for you here.
Well,
You said you're thinking of expanding the sanctuaries. Is it overflowing? Is the congregation overflowing the sanctuary?
Well, yes and no. It turns out that, since COVID, these seats supposedly were 9 people per pew. Well, that's pretty tight. It's pretty tight quarters. People don't sit in that close. People are bigger than they used to be. After COVID, they don't sit as close to them. So we've used the chapel as overflow. You saw the seats that we have back there. And during the services, we keep the doors open. There's a TV back there, a repeater. So some people sit back there. So our thought is to try and expand the sanctuary, and Joe's got a design for us, and to use what we have here. You got it.
I guess what, my philosophy when I talk to George, it's always the budget. It's like when the money was left for this project, in the education building. It was wonderful, but it was a specific amount of money that was left, and we designed something that we could actually afford and have a few dollars left.
And would last too.
And so this time, when George came to me, I said, well, what's your budget? Because these days, everything costs twice as much as you think it ought to cost, and it takes twice as long, and it's just a different world than it was back then. But that section, the transition, narthex, between the back of the sanctuary and the chapel was, that was basically left over and kept, and we just touched that up a little bit and made it work for however long we needed it. And now we need to do something else with it. So we're actually moving that back wall of the sanctuary back to the front of the chapel. And that narthex entry area that you came in through when you got here is going to just get absorbed into the sanctuary. The sanctuary, the reason for the expansion, those chairs that I brought in over there earlier, the chairs back in the back, are much more comfortable than the pews, but they're larger. So you need more space to even seat the same amount of people. So that worked out really well. We're taking out 15 feet, 8 inches of existing building between the back of the sanctuary and the chapel. And the vaulted ceiling will go on back to that back wall, and then we'll have a flat ceiling at the very back, but the sanctuary itself and the seating will go all the way back. There'll be a new wall right in front of the chapel, and it will have a very similar feel to it. And we'll have 3 more stained glass windows matching on each side. So, maybe a couple of years from now, when some of you might come by and look around, it'll be very similar to what it is now. We'll have the same character and usefulness, but it'll just be larger. We'll have more comfortable chairs. The sanctuary will become the entry. We don't want to do anything to the sanctuary that would keep it from being used for something else. George mentioned, some of the ideas before I got involved were to just simply lift the sanctuary and move it somewhere else. One place would be down there.
The chapel.
Someone else
right.
coming to the chapel.
Yeah, right.
Someone might have a use for it, but I looked at it and thought, that space is well used, using that entrance that goes out toward the park. So, and it's a nice space. There's no partitions or anything. It's just really a multi-use type of area that can be used for a lot of things, like us sitting in there earlier. There's plenty of room for a fair-sized crowd for something that's important to all of us. So we're taking the chapel, and we're just moving the entry porch that you saw outside. I don't know which direction you guys came in, but there's an entry porch over there. Not that exact entry porch, but that same character of entry porch is moving back to go attached to the side of the existing chapel. And then on the back side of the chapel, we're going to add 2 restrooms. So the entrance in and out will be very much as it is now. You'll come in off the street, into a porch, into the chapel, and you can go right out through double doors as you came in from that way, right out into the common space between the buildings. So
You'll enter from the corner?
From the belt.
You'll enter where the porch is over there right now.
Yeah.
That porch will just shift.
So you're not entering from the corner?
No.
You're going to actually tear off the wall of the old church?
So you're gonna move it.
There-
So you're gonna move it.
the original church, the chapel, what do you call the chapel?
No, we're not going to
It's
move
gonna
it.
stay there.
We thought of moving it, but we're not moving it now. No, we're not moving it.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it.
But we're using it.
We're gonna keep it, but the entrance door will come right into the side of the
Of the
chapel,
chapel.
toward this end of it. And there will be 2 restrooms on the back side of the chapel over there, which originally there were 2 restrooms in here. And when we took it apart in 95 or
94,
somewhere
yeah.
around there, it got reduced to one restroom, which you guys see over there now. So
So it's gonna change the look of that building because of the change in it.
The inside more than the outside. Outside, we think will still look pretty much the same. Right. The entry will come in through there. We're also getting a new sound and light system in here. We're moving the stained glass windows. The 3 that are on the side will go on the end. So we think that will look a lot better than it looks now. We also have 1 stained glass that's in between the buildings. So we'll take that out. That goes up on a wall. So I think we'll be a little more contemporary with the lights that we have, with the sound, the video that we have. All of that will be upgraded quite a bit. And we'll end up with about 205 people here rather than the 180. This really isn't 180. It fills up at 130, 140, something like that. So rather than have 2 services, we tried that one time a number of years ago. It just didn't work out very well. So stick with 1 service and try and fill it up.
the face to Crocker Street is exactly the same. It's not changing except that the stained glass, which isn't really stained glass in those windows, will be stained glass.
Mm-hmm.
And on that side, toward the building over there, there's an offset before you get to the restrooms. So that part facing the street is the same. The bell tower is the same. There'll be, when you leave the bell tower and come this way, there'll be 2 stained glass windows that are over there now.
They'll still be there.
To make that look proper. Laura, there's a rendering somewhere. It might be over there in that other,
The fellowship
in the fellowship
hall.
hall, but you should look at it. If you look at what's here now and look at the drawings I did in 95, and then look at the drawing I did for this a year ago, or 6 months ago or something, it looks very similar. If you hadn't been here all that time looking at it, you might drive by and say, oh, there it is, and not notice the difference. No, but I know you've been here for a couple of years. I have too.
Yes.
And I guess what startled me when I first looked at the project is there was a proposal for taking the chapel and doing something with it, like
Putting it
literally
Yeah.
moving it somewhere else, which startled me. But I would much rather see it used for something and stay where it's at, because that's its original location, and the manse is down at the end of the block. That's
It's part of the
been
church.
used for lots of things. They've adjusted it and made it work for whatever the current user's doing. But look at that drawing over there. You'll see. I think it won't scare you.
Somebody needs to ask us why that glass is missing. Is that what you're going to ask? It's down at Carol's. She is Carol's now of stained glass down the way. It's going to make 6 of them. There's 24 medallions of the life of Christ. We've only used 12 of them here, and it starts here and goes around like that. So the 6 more will be exactly like you see these, alternating between the blue and the purple, except we'll have 6 more because we had 3 more there and 3 more there. So that again will make this look, like just not a big difference. So we think it'll be quite spectacular with the new stained glass windows, a new sound system. We'll also get new heating and air conditioning system. There are now 30 31 years old, and are having problems with those. They're not as efficient as the new one. They make more noise. So it's time to upgrade those. They're a lot more expensive than they used to be. I think when we built over here, we had 6 on the roof, and those were like $2,500 a piece. Now an air conditioning unit's what, 25 or something like that per unit.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Everything is a lot. Everything is astonishing to see that we had a preliminary cost budget estimate put together for this, and it's that's, when I asked them what is your budget when it began, they gave me some figure that was maybe potentially what they had to spend for everything they'd ever dreamed of,
Right.
and
It was
it
millions,
wasn't enough.
millions of dollars.
It wasn't enough to do what they wanted to do. So we looked at it and tried to do something with what we have and make it look appropriate and keep the historical character of that.
Right.
And now this thing's historical, I guess. It's 30 years old.
Right, that's it. Well, you and I are antiques here too.
Anyway, that's kind of how it came together. And it went through the planning department and all that. And so that's, we hopefully will get started on that in a couple of months. So
do I understand then that you're gonna drop the roof in the back part?
this part you look at right here where the blue lamp beam is,
Right.
all of that stuff will get demolished. It'll be taken out of here. This vaulted ceiling you see goes all the way back to the back,
Okay, so you're gonna vault it all the way back.
all the way back to that existing back wall, to that location. And then there will be a mezzanine attic. They're called attic trusses. From that back wall back to the front of the chapel will be a mechanical room that will house the heating and air conditioning, interior parts of it. So this will be 16 feet longer. And the vault, instead of having that balcony that you see up there now, that will get removed. And then there'll be a 10-foot ceiling going on back to the face of the chapel. So it'll be different, but it's still the same kind of flavor.
Well, I want to say a big thank you, George, for
Sure.
giving us all your information. Joe, you as well, thank you. Giving us all this great information today, because it's really interesting to hear about the past, the present, and also
Right,
the future
and the future.
of what's going on
Right.
here. And I really appreciate your time. And I'd also like to say thank you for our museum building. We really appreciate
Oh,
our little
okay.
house.
Okay.
And we love it
Is
there.
this your last payment?
That is just a little something for you. There's some bits and pieces in there that
Okay.
we enjoy.
My special place. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so
So
much.
anybody, if you have questions?
No, George, when are we gonna get started though? Darn it.
Well, we could maybe start building September or something like that.
Yeah.
It was interesting, I guess from the house, another perspective on the house, it turns out that the co-op, like we started building in June and they closed for the summer, but then they did not come up in the fall. So they went out of business. So when we got rid of the trailers, we moved, which is where the office was, we moved the office into the house. Then when we got rid of the house, we moved our office space into the chapel. So it moved around. We continue to have services on site throughout the whole time period. This is going to be different because we cannot have services for the 3 or 4 months that we're under construction in here. We're cutting it right in the middle. So there'll be a fence, chain link fence all the way around construction, and we'll have our Sunday services in the fellowship hall, which is small. That's where we meet afterwards and have nourishments. So we'll figure it out somehow, but it'll only be hopefully for a few months. We would hope to have Christmas Eve services in the enlarged chapel. That's our goal. That's going to be a tough one to probably accomplish, but we're going to give it a shot. So why don't you join the church? Liz, pass the application form around and make sure they sign it up. Question.
Yes, I thought,
Jeff.
have we thought about a time capsule or anything like that for the church? I thought that might be interesting, open up in 100 years if,
You going to be here to open it? Well, that would be interesting to do something. We have some things left over, like the pews are all surplus. Who wants a pew? We got 21 of them. The light fixtures, they'll be gone. So the flooring, the wood flooring's not that old, probably 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. So that's always kind of sad when you take it apart. So I guess we could put a light bulb and something else in a capsule and buried it out in the parking lot. Next to Joe and I, we're probably both going to be buried here. That's my guess. Either we okay it or we don't. Although there's enough gas in my airplane for Joe and I to get to Vegas in one flight. So if things really get rough and you hear a World War II airplane heading east that lands in Vegas, because that probably would be on CNN, right? They cover every landing of planes. You'll know that we got kicked out of here. Go ahead.
What kind of plane is it?
1945 Stinson L5. It was a kind of an ambulance version in World War II. Only holds 2 people. It's fabric, sides, wood propeller. When my son flew with me for the first time, he said, "Dad, you don't smoke in this airplane." It's been out at the museum. I own it completely. And fly for Memorial Day, Veterans Day, a variety of activities like that. If you've gone to the Templeton for Memorial Day or Veterans Day, we do the flyover. We've done that for 25 years, something like that. One of our church members turned 100 last Saturday, and so we flew a 3-ship formation for him. He lived here in Templeton. Max Bowery, maybe some of you know Max. So, and we sometimes have flown for the Pioneer Parade, Colony Days, different things like that. Doesn't take much for us to get up and fly. 3 old airplanes, 3 old pilots. That's another story. Any other questions? Back to you, Neil. You got it. Thank you.
Good question.
No,